Hi everybody, we're here with Fran and Rachel, who are like horse obsessed, and we're going to be talking about how digital and social media marketing can be really useful and beneficial for the equine business industry. So if you would introduce yourself, please, that'd be lovely.
Rachel, do you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay, so I am Frances Dixon, and I have recently set up my own business. I kind of use that in a loose sense of the word, but I need to start sounding more like this isn't just a toy and it is more professional. No, I'm only joking. So my business is, well, it's me, basically, Frances Dixon Independent Equine Consultancy. And I'm a coronavirus lockdown biz. So I started pursuing my own thing at the start of March 2020. And this is why I'm really intrigued, and I want to know a little bit more about your views on this, Rachel, with this podcast, because my business basically started on a Facebook page and an Instagram profile. So obviously I have a lot of in-person contacts, and word of mouth is obviously one of the greatest powers that there is, but word of mouth is 100% as effective and as important. So my core focus is to educate horse owners and horse riders. It's very much from a teaching and coaching and educational perspective. I'm also a certified equine psychologist and also an NLP practitioner. So NLP, if you haven't heard of it before, stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Now, that is basically the psychology of humans and obviously horses. So to me, you can't do one without the other. You are a partnership as a horse and rider. It's two sides of the same coin. So it's really important to understand both perspectives and points of view. Now, how do you market that on social media? Well, that's what you're here to talk about, Rachel.
Yeah, so I suppose I'll introduce myself. So my name's Rachel Hatfield. I'm the co-founder and COO of Shoo Social Media, based here in the UK, in a place called West Yorkshire, Ilkley. We founded Shoo in 2014 and have supported businesses through their social media marketing campaigns. In the last 2 years, we've really specialised in Instagram and Facebook advertising. But a few years ago, as the social media sphere and in the industry actually started to sort of, I suppose, go into its adolescence on the sort of the bell curve, started to realise that actually you can niche down into certain industry sectors. So we started to look into the equine industry and how it's a very interesting industry to actually analyse, because it's actually quite on the outside, and I'm obviously my obsession with horses is more of a hobby rather than work. And I've really for me, I go on the weekends and I ride casually, and obviously for a lot having sort of an insight into the professional world of horses, because obviously when you're on a livery yard you get to meet people of all different levels of riding experience, which is obviously how I've met Fran. She was like currently a neighbour in another stable is probably the best way to describe it. You start to kind of hear things, you learn about the horse industry, and from an outsider's perspective, I suppose, for having a marketing sort of background, you start to realise how fragmented the industry is, and everyone's got there's lots of little tiny businesses that they all work together, but actually it's all through, as Fran said, word of mouth. And that's how it's all grown. And it's interesting to see how the industry is starting to change. I think I was talking to another lady who is at our livery yard. A lot of it all was done on paper. You'd submit everything in on the day to the actual when you're at a show.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Rachel, I don't know about you, but I think the equine industry is really missing a trick with it, and I think it's definitely starting to come more into the 21st century, if you like. But I think a lot of the equine industry as a whole is very set in their ways and quite old-fashioned, and I think this sort of new generation of people, investigating social media as a route and as a way to promote themselves it's becoming massive now. And I think we need to get better at it as industry professionals, because there's so much like wrong information out there as well. But I'm just, you know, like you said, I'm just a horsey girl that had a hobby and decided that I wanted to pursue it and make a business out of my passion. Like, I'm not some Instagram influencer or some social media guru. Like, I had no idea what I was doing at the start of it. I just set up a page and set up an Instagram profile. So having someone like you that's, as you say, got more of like the marketing background, I think that's really significant. And I think we as industry professionals in the equine industry need to look for help from people like you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And obviously, Kate, Francesca, we like, obviously, and Ella, feel free to interject, because obviously you guys are coming into the industry as well, into the social media side of things, and everything your generation does is all online. And imagine having to kind of submit application forms through pen and paper when you've got a smartphone in your hand. It kind of makes sense to be digital, and it's not just the social media side of it, it's the whole process of having like online applications, websites, all of that, making it easier, more streamlined, and it would make it more efficient. Imagine paying for everything online and just doing it that way, so much easier. But I think lockdown has definitely changed people's usage. I think businesses are pivoting, whatever business they are in, and they are definitely looking at digital. And I suppose as things mature and as sort of generations start to move up the ranks in terms of like digital and sort of age groups, and from Gen X to Gen Z, millennials, Gen Y.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of you guys. Like, I'm like the middle ground. I'm the breach between, I remember a childhood that didn't have iPhones and computers. And now I'm in the generation that does have iPhones and computers.
And Fran, you're not even that old yet.
I know, I feel it sometimes.
Do you want to kind of give people a bit of background sort of about kind of your career path and stuff? Because you have been very horsey and obviously done a lot of equine sort of on the semi-professional side, and now you're coming into the professional side of it as well, haven't you? So
yeah, so I had like a Sunday job in a cafe when I was like 16, 17. Then I went off to uni. So I studied equine sports performance at uni. Now that's basically how to make like an elite horse and rider, if you like. And I really enjoyed my degree, but from like a young age, like I was always told that horses are an expensive hobby that you need to have a job to fund, not that you could make money from horses. And I think a lot of people would still very much tell me that advice now. So I went and got a job. So I worked in retail to begin with, in a, well, sort of posh high street shoe shop, and I gradually worked my way up there. And that, I think, working like customer facing, so whether I think everybody's been a waitress or a sales assistant at some point in their life, and that to me is really, really valuable life skills to communicate with people and the general public as a whole. You have to build a certain level of confidence to be able to command a conversation, to offer customer service, to offer advice, and all of that sort of thing. So I worked in the shoe shop. Yep, that was great. Worked my way up, gradually got to the point of assistant manager. And I got to that point and thought, do you know what? I don't really want this kind of responsibility. This isn't my passion. I'm just here selling and probably buying a lot of shoes. So I thought I'd have a bit of a change. And I then went to a different retail company. So this was in clothes. And again, it got to the point where I was just like, assistant manager, but I don't want to go up any further. I don't want to do this. And then I actually ended up working in a sweet factory. I said, right, don't want to do this. I need a complete break. And I went to a sweet factory and started packing sweets, which was not great for my teeth, but there we go. And again, you know, it was the same sort of process. I started somewhere and then I was ambitious and wanted to do a bit more. So I, you know, moved into the office department and I worked in the dispatch department and the operations department and gradually worked my way up again. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, right, I've worked my way up this corporate ladder in a sense, but it's not what I want to do. Like, I kept finding myself just thinking there has got to be more to life than this. Like, my life is not inside these four walls. I very much am a person that works to live rather than lives to work. But throughout all of this journey, I had my horses. So at one point I had 3 horses. Like when I was younger, I started at a riding school, like I think most horse riders do. And, you know, I've ridden horses since I was sort of 7. And I got my first pony when I was 11. My poor mum and dad forked out a load of money for my pony, who's now living a happy life of retirement at a friend's farm. But yeah, throughout all of this, you know, I was getting up early in the morning to go and muck them out before work, to then travel to work a full day, and then come back and sort them all out again. Like sometimes I would leave the house at 6:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't get home again until like 9 o'clock at night. If you've got 3 horses that need exercising and the only time you've got is on an evening, you need to have that drive and motivation to do that. And they always were my motivation. It wasn't going to work to earn money. I was earning that money to fund my horses. And I think over lockdown, this was where my kind of mindset, if you like, just transformed. It was life-changing because I suddenly had all this time and opportunity on my hand to actually start pursuing something that I wanted to do. And like Rachel said, you know, as neighbours at the yard, I just sort of found people coming to me for advice and, you know, to ask my opinion on things. And, you know, there was a mindset shift where I sort of thought, actually, like, maybe I could start charging for this. Like, people obviously want to hear what I have to say and, you know, they value my opinion. And I'd like to think that it comes from an educated point of view. Like, I have a degree in horses, and that was one thing my dad, like, always said to me, or, you know, like my partner, he always says, oh, well, you've got a degree that's useless, you're not making use of it. But actually now I am really putting those skills that I learned, all those years of experience with horses and the education that I now have, into practice and into use. So through lockdown, that was when I did my equine psychology qualification. That was when I did my NLP qualification. And that almost like completes the puzzle for me. So I'm a bit of an anatomy and physiology nerd. I know all about the horse and from like a fitness and riding point of view. But I think the psychology side of it is like the final piece of the puzzle, and it's getting that horse and rider connection to come together. So that was how it all sort of happened for me. I was always working in a job that I didn't necessarily connect with, but it was funding what I wanted to do. Whereas now I feel like I'm finally, you know, making a difference to people's lives and riders' lives, and it's providing a better life for the horses that I'm working with. The riders that I'm working with are more confident, and that's transformative in a lot of ways. You know, I think we ride as a hobby to make us feel better, but sometimes we can really beat ourselves up about it. And actually that's supposed to be the fun time of your day, your time to wind down and relax. And what I want to do is be able to make more people enjoy that time, instead of worrying about the fear of judgment, or that they're not good enough, or that they're not achieving their goals, or, you know, all of those kind of emotions. But yeah, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now, and it's something that I definitely have the drive and want to pursue, and put all of those years of experience to work now, rather than just, you know, being a hobby.
How much happier are you now that you've kind of moved away from the corporate world, and kind of your hobby, your like dream is your job? I know you've kind of just explained that, but
yeah, massively. So it's a huge mindset shift from worrying about, you know, there's a coach that I follow on Instagram, and she said, you know, you feel like you need to stay in corporate because it feels like security, but actually when you depend on yourself, you create your own security. So like, again, through the coronavirus lockdown, there was a lot of people that lost their jobs. Their jobs were not secure. There's a lot of jobs that even now probably aren't still secure. Whereas if you're relying on your own business, it's up to you to make it happen, and you can make changes to ensure that it is still secure. And I think having that stability is very, you know, it's useful. And I can now work to my own sort of time schedule and facilitate what I want to do around other things. I'm not working to someone else's like pressure and time, and this, like, the stress relief is massive. And as I said, that goes back to that thing of just thinking like there has got to be more to life than this. There has got to be more to life than just traveling to work for someone else, to come home again, to do it all again the next day. Like, it's massive. And I feel fulfilled now. I feel like I'm actually making a difference to the world. that's the best bit. I feel like I'm actually helping people and horses.
Yeah. And do you think that kind of using social media, if you hadn't had that, would it have been a lot harder for you to kind of establish any sort of business? I know it's hard, it's really hard to imagine kind of doing it at all without that, but how much of a tool, like a positive tool, has it been for you?
Yeah, 100%. So before I actually actively sort of started doing this, I was riding a couple of people's horses from the yard. Like, you know, obviously me and Rachel had chatted about things before, and as I say, people were coming to me and asking for advice. But that was it. It was, you know, very much very local, very sort of like concentrated in the people that were around me and already in my circle. But I've been able to do like a whole webinar series over lockdown. And when I say webinar series, like, again, I'm not some amazing guru. I literally put some PowerPoint presentations together and shared my knowledge. I kid you not, I had people from Australia. There's people in America who've been in touch with me. There's people in like Spain and France. And, you know, the reach of your audience is massive. And without social media, you just wouldn't have that kind of growth and reach. I actually did another podcast with a trainer, again, in Australia. And that's the kind of platform that you just wouldn't have had access to be able to utilize. So yeah, it massively made a difference. Otherwise I would just have been within the same literal reach.
Yeah.
You said earlier about how I think you said about the pandemic and how it made the horsey world come into the 21st century and use social media. Do you think without the pandemic the equine world would still be living in the olden ages, or do you think eventually things would have gone on to the digital world?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I can only speak for myself, and for me it was more actually having the time to dedicate to social media or creating a little website. Or like, as horse owners, if you're working in corporate, like I said, you don't have enough hours in the day to even sit down and do stuff like that. But the younger generation, being on Instagram, being on Facebook, they are the people that are your followers. Now, whether they're your target audience is a different matter, but a lot of students who are going through like university and college courses and things like that now are starting to set up pages, and I think that generation will come through eventually. But there's always going to be a limit with how much you can do online as a horse rider. I can't teach someone to ride through a computer screen, but I can educate them on other stuff, like the actual sort of scientific biology side of it, if you like. So there's a limit, but it depends what you want to do. If you're a physio, for example, you can't treat a horse through a computer screen. You might be able to advise their owners a little bit, but you're always going to be slightly limited. So I think it's going to be a bit of a balance. You can promote yourself and market yourself online, and you can do virtual like programs and courses and stuff, but you're always going to have to come into contact with a horse at least once. So I think there's a limit, but yeah, I agree, the younger generation is very much online now, and actually some of the older generation, like, you know, some kind of that middle-aged generation, are definitely dabbling. On, you know, even if they're not setting up their own pages and things, it's very easy for them to, you know, like a page on Facebook and follow what that person's doing, and then they could maybe pop in a messenger, or even if they're not actively doing it themselves, they're still interacting with you and they might be your target audience.
Did it take you a while to kind of gain speed and gain kind of success with what you were doing? Because obviously you said you started it lockdown, so was it start of lockdown March last year?
Yes, definitely.
Oh yeah, it's been oh my god, it's been a
No, it's been a year.
I can't remember that, mad. But kind of in the year, how much success have you had? Is it, because now it sounds like you're kind of flying with it?
I mean, I don't know if I'd say flying.
Getting there.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of people focus very much on like your followers and your number of followers, and you can have 1 million followers, but if none of them are engaged and none of them actually want to hear what you have to say, then they're pointless. So again, I'm not some like Instagram guru, but there's a lot of free resources out there. Like there's a lot of coaches and things out there that are doing free like groups and group live chats on Facebook, and you know, sharing their knowledge and things. Like I've not had to spend thousands of pounds on coaches and everything else and blah 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 to get to where I am. I think in the future, and it's certainly something that I'm looking into now, is investing a bit more to take me maybe to that next level. But I'm just a horse rider that's had a passion and wanted to make more of it. Like, you don't have to be an Instagram influencer to build a following to share what you have to say.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's refreshing to see somebody like, because obviously I'm probably could speak for Kate and Fran, but I think it's so common these days to set up an Instagram page and like think that your business is going to fly, but you've actually done that. You've said that you're not an Instagram guru, you don't like know everything and a lot of things, but like
Instagram takes work. Like, I can see why people employ people to do this as a full-time role. Like, I'm literally still just a normal person going about my everyday life, creating graphics on Canva at the weekend, you know. Like, in my free time I'll do a post if I can, and it's not polished, it's not perfect. It's like, I still have to write my copy out and edit it if I've put a spelling mistake in there. Hashtags, what a minefield. Like, you know, there's all of these things out there. But I think, you know, a lot of people go on about, oh my god, this awful Instagram algorithm, and you're never going to beat the algorithms. Like, just work with it. I think as long as you don't take it too seriously and you don't end up down that rabbit hole tunnel vision of, oh my god, social media is my life, it's still fun. And I suppose that's where I get the balance as like a horse rider. And like I say, you have to actually still interact with people and horses. My life isn't necessarily in a screen 100%, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily have that balance, or they don't have that outlet, if you like.
Yeah. So building on that, if you like had someone maybe my age or someone your age who you said weren't really like that Instagram social media savvy, what would like your top tips be if like lockdown happened again, or there's like an opportunity to build on something that they wanted to do and all they had was like access to social media and not a lot of knowledge? What would you advise? Because I feel like it can be overwhelming when you see all these like like a social media marketing agency and there's obviously a lot behind the scenes, but you haven't got access to that. Like, what would you advise? What were your best tips? Because you've done it.
Exactly. Well, first and foremost, just do it. Try. It doesn't matter what you put out there. It could be the most ridiculous stuff, but that is how you get better. Like, you have to try and put stuff out there, see what works, see what doesn't. If it works, do more of it. If it doesn't, do less of it. Get yourself a coach. You know, Rachel's like chatted with me pretty much all the way through from start to finish, you know, even if it's just to like have a rant at someone or say, look, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. Even if you're feeling just a bit like stressed about it and you don't quite know what to do, just chat with someone, but find the right person. Like, chatting with your friends or your family aren't necessarily the right people. You know, you must have like a biz buddy that you maybe look up to, or you know, like Rachel's, you know, started her own company. You know, that's the kind of thing that I want to do. So find the person that is living the life you want and doing the things you want to do, because they're the best people to get advice from. At the same time, like as I said just before, there's loads of free resources out there. Like, follow coaches on Instagram, find those accounts that you want to follow that are doing what you want to do, and just do what they do, learn from it. Like, again, there's stories, you know, go live on your stories, take pictures. Like, you don't have to, I've not got an amazing camera, I've literally got a phone that I try and take some half decent pictures with. You know, utilize the resources that you've got. Go on YouTube, find out what, you know, people recommend if you want to build your followers. Like, there's so many people out there doing it. Just learn from them, you know, be inspired, take inspired action. And yeah, at the end of the day, doesn't matter if you make mistakes or it's not perfect. The fact that you're doing it puts you ahead of everybody else from the start.
Is there anything you'd want to add to that, Rachel? Any advice for anybody who wants to start a business?
Oh yeah, I suppose there's probably some bits and pieces that you can start off. Obviously, finding the right tribe to surround you, which Fran's already mentioned that, and building that following. Obviously, you're not going to be all things to everybody. You know, that's just how it is. That's just life. And I think, you know, building that tribe, surrounding yourself with the right people, finding the right business mentors, business coaches to have around you. That's how we've grown our business. We've had the right people around us. keeping positive as well. That's probably the key thing, really, is, you know, I don't know if anyone's ever seen the entrepreneur's graph. I always talk about this one. It goes up and down, and some days you'll have a high flying day and everything's going perfect, and then you could wake up the next day and everything could go horribly wrong. And when you're starting up a business, they're just the things that your emotions are just riding high, and it's a lot of it's pumped with adrenaline as well, because you're trying to make things survive. And then as the business starts to grow, like Shoo is now, and we're starting to employ people, there's a whole completely set of different challenges. And obviously we've set goal, and it's all about setting goals. I think we've covered that quite a bit in the Shoo Academy, having those objectives and those KPIs.
I have to admit, I'm not very good at that.
Having that vision board, you know, you've got to have that focus to get to where you want to be. And I think for me, JJ just didn't happen to sort of come by. I always, from 5 years old, from when I started riding, I always wanted a chestnut horse with 4 white socks. And that was, and I knew, like as Fran said, the way to get that was to find the job in the corporate world to pay for that horse. And obviously through the years of I eventually got my horse, and I didn't get him until in my early 30s. But
I'm a big believer in the law of attraction and manifestation as well. Like everything you're saying, if you believe it, so this is like from the kind of NLP perspective, if you put that message out there and you think about it and you want it, your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what you tell it. And if you're putting in that positivity, everything becomes more positive. Like your vibe attracts your tribe. And if you can stay in that kind of positive mindset and imagine what you really, really, really want, and that's where your energy is going, like the universe has to find a way to give it to you. I've just got a gin delivered.
Hey, that's what we like about this.
And on that note,
I feel like I've already selected one of the PR clips there. I'm like,
Shoocast, always good.
I think this is actually my favourite episode because, like, well, I think it has, because obviously I've loved the guests we've had, but you've started from like as a normal.
Yeah, I am normal.
Well, they're all normal, Ella.
I'm not really good at explaining things, but I think like with the other guests, they've been in the industry a lot of years, and they've come with a lot of advice, and they're like more expert. So you've come from last year, your business is fairly new, and you've already said like you're still learning along the way, and you're not like, well, as knowledgeable as those because they've been in longer. So I think
so what I would say to that is, like, I think the word niche gets bandied around a lot, but I think what you have to be is unique. So my approach to what I do is unique. There's nobody that does it like me. And what you're saying about I'm not an expert in social media or marketing, but I am an expert in what I do. And that is what you can then put out there. And like I say, the people that want to hear what you have to say will find you if you're there and you're visible and you're showing up. Like, you don't have to be amazing at Instagram or amazing at Facebook or whatever, but if you can find someone like Rach to help or maybe give you a bit of direction in that, you can dabble in it and work out what's going to work and what doesn't. But again, I suppose this is going back to, from an equine perspective, you're always going to have to physically actually be with someone. I kind of think that kind of keeps you in the reality of life. Like, you're not just behind a screen, you are still just a real normal person. And like Rachel was saying about like entrepreneurial and business ups and downs and things, I literally got dragged on the floor by a client's horse on Sunday, and like that,
sorry, not funny.
Honestly, like, I can laugh about it now, and it wasn't even a big deal, but that's a humbling experience. Like, I can be an expert horse trainer and like all of this jazz, but I'm not necessarily doing anything magical that somebody else couldn't do.
Owning it, like you're
it's a humbling experience. You know, horses ever keep you humble. Like, you could have 10,000 followers on Instagram, your horse could still deck you the next day, you know. I think you have to have that grasp on reality. It's not all Instagram and Facebook and funnels and ads and taking perfect pictures and blah blah blah. Like, sometimes you still get covered in mud.
Yeah.
Do you think that lockdown has helped your business as people have had more time to spend pursuing their hobbies and spending time with the horses? Do you think that's helped as well make your social media and grow your business, but also help attract people to your business as well?
Yeah, 100%. So as I say, working like in person with clients, people had loads of free time over lockdown to be riding the horse. There is no easier way to socially distance than from the back of a horse. You know, all of these things could still go ahead. People were encouraged to still go and ride their horses for their mental health, for exercise, to be outside in the fresh air. Like, it's a brilliant industry. And I myself spent loads of hours in the saddle hacking, going out, and it kept me sane. It's still my reason to get up and out of bed every morning, just like it was all those years ago when I was getting up at 6 a.m. to go to a job. You know, that's the one thing that you have to still get up and out of bed for every single day. I can't imagine, I literally don't know what people that don't have horses do with their life. Like, what is this free time that you speak of? Like, and I think during lockdown that would have been really hard if I didn't have that, to literally just be stuck at home all day, you know, and not have that kind of purpose and that passion.
Yeah. Rachel, do you think that lockdown has helped businesses grow on digital because you can go out and word of mouth? Is that how people are now communicating, and do you think that will?
I think mine did.
I definitely think so. I think a lot of businesses have pivoted onto digital. I think they're embracing it a lot more, no matter what generation you whether you're Gen X, millennial, or down to Gen Z. I think for me, we've helped a lot of businesses pivot when we were in sort of June, July, August last year, and just support them with smaller projects, because they have been the smaller businesses that have needed that support. Obviously, other businesses probably going through the motions of currently downsizing, which is obviously quite a sad time for them. But I think we've embraced digital, and I think it's pushed the whole industry, not just in social media, but pushed everything forward by at least 5 years. We're all sat here doing a podcast on Zoom. Who I would have never dreamed of doing this probably this time 2 years ago, and I'd be like, why are we recording podcasts on Zoom? I hate being on camera. And it's like,
but it's so easy. It's so easy.
Imagine if we had to like coordinate this right now. We'd have probably gone up to Leeds Beckett, used a studio. You guys would have had to drive to Leeds and find a time in between trying to muck out horses and ride them and exercise them, and then record it and then come back. And at least here we've got the comfort of our own home. I've had to kind of move out of the office because that's being redecorated, so the office is upside down. I'm sat on a laptop and I had to find another piece of technology.
But again, like, even from an entrepreneurial perspective, like, setting up a PayPal account, it's easy to get paid. You know, people can do bank transfers. You don't have to have cash or write a check or whatever they did in the Victorian age. Like, you don't have to do that now. Everything is so much easier.
Cash?
Literally.
Apple Pay changed my life, honestly. Apple Pay.
I love Apple Pay. I could not live without Apple Pay.
Down, or having to put your code in because it doesn't detect your face with a mask. You need to fix that.
And even following on that, making content for your social media account, you just need your phone with a camera, swipe it onto camera, and you can record something, quickly upload it, and that's it. You don't need fancy equipment or fancy software. You just need basic equipment, and that's all.
You don't need to be a graphic designer to do these things. Like, it's not impossible. And like I say, in the beginning they might be a bit rubbish. You might not know what colors to use, you might not know what fonts to use, but you're still putting it out there, and you will improve and you will get better. Like, it's easy. It's so much easier.
And you can always go back and delete the ones that you then
No, you can't, because it'll ruin your grid.
The stress.
I think what also comes with it is confidence, and you have a lot of confidence and optimism. You can just tell straight away. I think that comes hand in hand when you maybe are just getting, having that imposter syndrome. Because, well, Rachel knows, like, I'm wanting to start my own business up in like the social media world, and I was like, I'm going to do law of attraction. I'm going to manifest it, and then it's
not that easy.
Yeah, it happened, but like for me, if I'd have not been in the marketing social media world, I would have literally set up an Instagram account, posted some things, and I would not have really known what else to do. But if you've got that confidence, you'll learn.
So on imposter syndrome, that is real. I fully relate to imposter syndrome. And you're right, it's just having that confidence to sort of push through it. And I think I always described it as like having those bits of paper make me feel like I have that credibility. So now, like, I've got a couple of qualifications and certificates and things like that, but yes, they make you more credible, but what you put out there and what people say about you, like your, you know, people that recommend you, or, you know, they become your advocates. They're the kind of people that actually give you that credibility and will pass your name on to someone else. And this is that like word of mouth and word of mouth. But when you're sat there thinking, you know, who am I to be doing all of this? Like you just said, you're a normal person, just like me, you know. You're still whoever you are, just behind a computer screen. And don't lose that. Don't ever feel like you're just an Instagram profile, because you're not. You're still doing whatever you're doing. So I fully relate to imposter syndrome, and it's a big thing. And I don't think anybody knows about it enough. I didn't even know what imposter syndrome was before I suddenly felt it and realized it and heard an Instagram coach talking about it on Instagram, you know. And like, I'm literal proof that you can just do it. Like, if in doubt, just keep going. You have to just keep that momentum. And I think what you were saying about confidence, this is why I value the work that I did do in retail and in waitressing and, you know, all of that stuff that I've done in corporate. I'm, like my dad would say, that I just like the sound of my own voice. But as a coach, I am that figure of authority to that person that I'm coaching. I need to know what I'm talking about. I need to be able to say it in a comprehensible way. And I think I've gained those skills from communicating with people over a counter and helping them with their problems, or if they've got a complaint, you know, trying to bring that person down. And it's an emotional thing. Like, from the NLP qualification that I did, like, I've always kind of done that, but not realized it was an actual thing, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And all it is being able to build rapport with people and understand the psychology and the emotions that they're feeling, and then to make them feel better. Like, that is what I do for my riders that lack confidence. I want to make them feel better about it. So having that confidence to just do it and get out there, that has to come from within, but you can draw on your life experiences for that.
Yeah. So,
just a thought, actually, thinking about the sort of, obviously, all the rest of the equestrian industry. How do you think, coming out of this pandemic, how do you feel or think like the future looks like for the equestrian industry right now? Is any, I mean, all questions open to the floor. What do you think is going to happen? How are they going to embrace it? Are there going to be more tech companies out there that are going to suddenly start to sort of support the equestrian world and see it as a different industry? I mean, how does everyone feel about that?
I think there's so many dimensions to the equestrian industry that the people that utilize social media are going to do well if that's what they want to do well in, but you're still going to have that horse-human interperson real world interaction. So I think there's only so far that you can go with using social media. But even places like venues doing like arena hires or booking lessons and stuff, a lot of them now are pre-entry only via their website, or prepay via PayPal, or, you know, a lot of places have utilized digital and virtual systems and resources to facilitate and, again, make life easier for their clients.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be a bigger increase on kind of the equipment around it, that you might see kind of sales of that increase and see that more. But like you say, if there's not the in-person part, businesses as such probably won't as much.
I get what you're saying. Like, even things like people having ring lights or having better phones to take pictures, or there's something called a Pivo, which is a little thing that like records you riding and tracks you and stuff like that. Digital like technology, I think, is great. But on the flip side of that, I think image is very important on social media. So you might see sales of, I don't know, like for equestrians, you know, really posh riding brands getting more sales because people want to look good on their Instagram, or they want the most up-to-date tech. People want to be influencers. They want to be gifted by brands. They want to, you know, work with brands so that they can plaster it all over their social media. And again, I think this is what I was saying about there being so many dimensions like to the equestrian industry. I come from an educational perspective. I want to teach people real stuff. I don't necessarily care what I look like. I'd like to look good, and I like professional photos, and if you look the part, then you're halfway there. But I'm, like I say, still potentially going to get covered in mud every now and again. So there's a flip side.
I think every equestrian that looks perfect has been in the mud at some point and just managed to kind of cover themselves and make themselves look great. I've never, like, my car is covered in mud.
I'm like, so glad I'm not the only one. My car's a right tip.
Yeah. It's like horses and mud just kind of come hand in hand. I think that is just...
You need the seat covers. Oh my God, my mum has these. I mean, she doesn't have a horse, but she was a very horsey child, so this might be why. Covers in the car, because she lives in a Hunt Wellies, like walking the dogs in the field. So she's just like, you get in the car and it looks a state, but then you take them back and it's like a brand new car. So if you're picking anyone up, you quickly take them off and put them in the back.
It's humbling though. This is going back to reality and not just screen time.
Yes.
I think my car's gone beyond that now. It's just like, it's just mud. Dogs and horses kind of go hand in hand, but yeah, absolutely. Dogs, mud, horses, mud.
Rach, I wanted to ask you, so from your perspective and obviously what you do, do you think like equestrian businesses, you know, like myself and everybody else that's kind of in the industry, what would you recommend from, you know, what you do in your business perspective? Like what kind of like guide would you give people? Because I think people like me need resources like that. You know, I'm thirsty for that knowledge. How do you think you could help people like me or us in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually, because I think there's going to be a lot of changes and how it embraces, and that could be coming from the bigger companies to start with. It could come from tech companies who are wanting to support the industry, bringing trainers and together, bringing resource together. So, because obviously a lot of you all freelance, and perhaps there's a one-shop portal for everybody, and people can go and find you all.
Yeah, we don't have that big team of people behind us either.
Yeah,
we're just one person.
And is there an umbrella where everyone can come underneath and they all start kind of working together? Is that a possibility in the future? The whole world, I think the world will get smaller in terms of, like you said, Fran, you're talking to trainers in Australia and stuff like that. I think the world will get smaller, purely because they are embracing digital and trainers, and you can find people more easily, whereas before I wouldn't have known where to look for people. But now you can sort of find people, and I think riders are coming together. So there's lots of things people can do on a smaller scale. Obviously, actually, we work on sort of very sort of large campaigns in terms of digital advertising. But there's definitely places where you can start, work together, formulate kind of collaborations with people. And I
love a good collaboration. Here we are.
I mean, we're collaborating tonight. You know, this is what we're doing. And I think there's going to be, it's about helping each other, and I think it's definitely going to change. There's definitely things people can do, and I think that's the thing. It's about working together, and I think that's demonstrated throughout the whole of this lockdown. It's about helping each other and working together. If you go off on a silo, nothing ever gets done.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing as well. The equine industry has got a lot of stigma about, you know, being like, I don't want to swear, but like being or putting each other down or not supporting each other. And actually, I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think there's a bit of a minority, but like generally, actually on social media, I've had a really positive experience. You know, people have been really supportive, and I think we've all realized that we need to be a bit nicer to each other. And actually, you know, you don't just have to go around putting everybody down. Like, I live to build up my riders and make them feel better. And I think that translates into then everything that you do. It translates into your personal life. It translates into how you write your Facebook posts and all of that. So yeah, I completely agree. You've got to support each other.
Yeah, definitely. And the good thing about the equestrian world, it brings all generations together.
Yeah, 100%.
A minute you could be talking to someone who's 12 years old about horses and training them, because that's probably the best time to probably start your semi-professional career at 12 anyway, because when you because it's the best time to start training, I suppose. It's easier, more adaptable when you're younger. to get.
I teach all age ranges, exactly as you said. I've got people that are like teenagers up to like middle-aged women.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be still riding when I'm like 70 years old.
Yes.
That is my mission. If I can do a dressage test when I'm 70 years old on a horse, that's going to be the best. If I'm still mobile and moving and everything by then, that would be amazing. But yeah, I think that the world's going to change. I think we're going to go into some kind of new normal. I think the equine and equestrian industry, whether that starts in the more professional world, whether it's in the sort of the eventing side of things, horse racing, polo, wherever that starts, things are going to change. And I think, you know, there is going to be that call for clothing in the equestrian world. There's going to be a lot of that going on because people want them. I mean, I'm wearing something now.
Yeah, same.
And that is gonna, you know, you want the nice stuff, and a lot of it was always very hard to get hold of, but now it's so easy to get hold of.
Or very expensive. I think a lot of places have brought the prices down a little bit, or at least made them more manageable and appeal to a wider audience. Yeah, I agree. It used to be, you know, if you had technical attire, you were this elite rider, whereas now it's accessible to everyone. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's the perception of the actual industry itself is definitely changing, and I think they have to change. Otherwise, you know, the industry will disappear.
I do think it's striking that balance that, like, even events like Bramham that we love to go to and stuff, they've not been able to run, and they've tried to do marketing online and stuff, and honestly, I don't think they've done a very good job. I really don't. Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. I don't think they're seeking the advice. I think they rely so much on the in-person side of it, and yes, they have to. Obviously, they're a massive event and they get thousands of spectators every year, and companies do have a marketing budget, etc. But I think they could have used that so much more effectively, and I just genuinely don't think they have. And you know, that's the highlight of my year. Every year is going to Bramham and going to watch that event. That's great, but I go there because it's local to me. What's enticing you to that event? It's your social media platforms. And I think if you don't have that right kind of drive behind it, then you're right, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah.
I have a final question, just to clarify for Ella. You're going to hate me, but
go on.
Is it a quine or a queen?
Why did you have to?
It had to be in there.
I'd like to think I'm a queen, but it's definitely equine.
Yeah,
to be fair, when we were planning this, I said the word equine, and Kate.
I didn't think it was. I honestly thought she made it up. I was like, "That's not a word." I was like, "Fran, that's not a word."
I'll be a queen here with my sparkly gin glass and my pink what is it? Pink vodka.
Quine.
Oh, I'm so glad I have a horsey sister, so I knew the word. I was like, I know what the word.
I have horses on the fence in the back garden, and my next door neighbour has them, and I'm sat here like, equine's not a word.
Is it I didn't know the word existed? I thought it was equestrian, but I don't know like what.
I'm sorry, my Alexa's talking at me now. I'm so sorry. The joys of working from home.
It's like we're surrounded by tech. Like my watch starts talking to me when I'm having a conversation with the horse, and then Siri speaks up.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're all right.
Just shut up now.
I was going to ask if anyone has any more questions.
No, I don't think so. It's been really interesting, though. It's been really.
It's been just, I think, more relatable to the younger people who may not have a lot of like knowledge, experience, like contacts, money.
Yeah, all of that. Like, I'm only 27, right? And I've been to university, I've got a couple of qualifications, but I'm out there doing it. Like, I still feel like I've got my whole life ahead of me to, you know, keep doing what I'm doing and make something of it. Like, honestly, just make that first step, just keep doing it. If I could speak to my younger self, I'd say, just do it. Like, take that first step. Don't let imposter syndrome hold you back. Be confident in what you have to offer. Like, if you're struggling with that, find someone that can help and advise you. Even if you just need to have like a bit of a rant with someone over some cheesy chips. That's what we did, Rach, wasn't it? Like, you know.
It's a very northern way to tackle that.
Cheesy chips.
But yeah, I think you've gave a lot of good advice, and I think you've been just about yourself and how like you're doing it with confidence and your passion.
Try. You can only try.
It just works with like yourself and your passion. So yeah, it's been really interesting. Don't get me wrong, everyone's been absolutely lovely.
I was gonna say.
I know what you mean though. It can be so intense, can't it?
That's what
I think
mean.
this is what I mean about striking the balance between like reality and your screen time. Like, you know, you can still end up covered in mud. maybe that's your tagline. You can still end up covered in mud even when you've got 10,000 followers.
Yeah. I think it's like a refreshing, different perspective that you've given.
Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you've enjoyed it.
I hope everyone else has as well. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye. Bye.